morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. For the record, Joe McKittrick, Staff Counsel. Senate Bill 5534 concerns spring blade knives. For background on this bill, a spring blade knife means any knife with a blade that is automatically released by a spring or other mechanical device, or any knife that has a blade which opens, falls, or ejects into position by the force of gravity or by an outward, downward, or centrifugal thrust or movement. Under current law, spring blade knives are considered dangerous weapons, and possession of such dangerous weapons is considered a gross misdemeanor crime. However, the law does provide, however, the law prohibiting the possession of spring blade knives does not apply to law enforcement, firefighters, rescue workers, or military members while on duty, transporting, or storing a spring blade knife. Current law also allows for the manufacture, sale, and possession of spring blade knives pursuant to a contract with law enforcement, firefighters, or rescue services, or the military, or solely for trial, test, or other provisional use or for evaluation purposes by these agencies. If enacted, Senate Bill 5534 would remove spring blade knives from the list of weapons classified as dangerous weapons. However, the statutes pertaining to, other statutes pertaining to firearms and dangerous weapons are amended to provide that it remains unlawful to bring a spring blade knife onto school grounds, onto school-provided transportation, or areas of facilities that are being used exclusively by schools. That spring blade knives are still prohibited at locations where weapons are prohibited, such as jails, courthouses, and certain airports and transit facilities, and that family daycare providers must securely store any spring blade knife when children are present at that facility. Finally, the bill repeals the statute that permits possession of spring blade knives by law enforcement and military members, and that permits certain contracts, trials, and testing of these spring blade knives, as these would no longer be considered dangerous weapons. The statute exempting these agencies from using those is no longer necessary. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Do any of the committee members have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, Senator Fortunato, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving this bill a hearing. This is one of those things that I think we've passed this in the Senate almost unanimously 2 or 3 times. And it's really about just the manufacture and possession of a knife that is used in other situations than you see in a movie that kind of depict it in a derogatory manner. But if you're a disabled person and you need to be able to handle a knife for whatever reason, this helps facilitate that. Roofers, for example, somebody working that needs to have a knife to do their jobs, this is a helpful situation. So it's really just a cleanup bill to try to bring this into the 21st century and get away from the Hollywood stereotypes. But, I urge your support.
Thank you so much. And we have passed this definitely out of the Law and Justice Committee a few times already. Excuse me. And with that, we're going to go to our in-person testifiers, Mike Vellekamp and Todd Rathner. And then we will go to our remote testifier, Jeff Pack. Good morning.
Madam Chair, Ranking Member, members of the committee, thank you for hearing this bill yet again. It's sort of like Groundhog Day. We appreciate the committee and the Senate. Thank you for hearing Senate Bill 5534 today. For the record, my name is Todd Rathner, and I represent Knife Rights, a knife owners, collectors, and manufacturers organization, and our members support SB 5534. Simple possession of spring blade knives was banned in the 1950s in a number of states. This was not in reaction to any prevalence of their use in crimes, but rather a reaction to the hyperbolic press and movies like Rebel Without a Cause. Creating a perception that they were carried by gang members, there is no evidence that was ever the case. How a knife opens has never been a factor in whether or not it's used in a crime. As a matter of fact, we know that kitchen knives are much more likely to be used in crimes because they're readily available to everyone and certainly in domestic violence situations. Spring blade knife laws are disproportionately used by police to target people of color for stops that would not otherwise happen. This is why Freddie Gray was stopped in Baltimore and tragically ended up in the back of a police van, which is why the ACLU of Washington has supported versions of this bill in the past. SB 5534's criminal justice reform. Spring blade knives are used every day by workers of all kinds, and folks should not have to be worried about being arrested for possessing an everyday tool. In 2012, this legislature decriminalized the manufacture of spring blade knives because there is a robust knife-making industry, and you'll hear from one of the knife makers in Washington right away here. Currently, knife makers in Washington have trouble competing with their counterparts in other states because they cannot sell the products they produce here to citizens who live here. SB 5534 will solve this. Washington is the last Western state to have a complete ban on possession of spring blade knives. 15 states have repealed their ban since 2010. And with that, I would ask you to please vote yes on 5534, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Madam Chair, Dinga, and committee members, thank you. Good morning. I want to thank you guys for hearing this bill. Again, there's some things that Mr. Rathner had touched on that I'm not going to belabor and make a duplicate. Yeah, it's for me, for the record, I'm Mike Vellekamp. I'm the CEO of V Knives, and I am the last manufacturer, my company is the last manufacturer in Washington State that makes folding knives. One of our competitors, who is also very good friends of mine, SOG Knives, or SOG Knives, multi-million-dollar company in Linwood, they are now gone. They've moved to Texas. And no one that I ever talked to wants to do anything as far as business with knife manufacturing here in the state because of some of these laws that we've had to try and clean up. In the past, when Christina Gregoire was governor, she did sign a bill that was a bipartisan bill. Similarly, it just allowed for the manufacture, though, and not for the carry of these products. And it helped, but right now, these are the kind of products that we need to be making and selling, or we can no longer compete. We can't continue to compete with our companies who are our friends in California, in Oregon, was a very big manufacturing place for pocket knives, and also Idaho, Montana. Everyone around us is thriving and making money in this industry, and I've got some cuffs on me here where I can't be allowed to do that, and I'm sad to report we just shut down our retail store up in Eatonville, Washington as well, and one of those reasons is we can't sell the kind of knives that people want to buy and want to use. So there's a million reasons why, and there's lots of statistics on crime and all that other stuff that we could get into, but from my point of view, it's protecting my way of life, it's protecting my employees and my business, and it's something else that could go to revenue in Washington State, you know. So I definitely support it, and I hope you guys do too. I would definitely urge you to pass Senate Bill 5534.
Thank you so much. I believe Senator Lovick has a question and extra points for mentioning revenue.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Senator Lovick.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. And you know, you mentioned crime, and I was just wondering, is there any information anywhere to talk about how often does some violence involve the use of one of these knives? Do you have any information on that at all?
I don't have direct statistical numbers on me. I've done a lot of the research myself, and I know that Mr. Rathner probably has some numbers on crime statistics, but I know that every time that it's been looked into, it's been found out that it is usually when there is a knife involved in crime, it is generally a kitchen knife or a household knife. It is generally done in the home, and it is generally domestic violence.
Madam Chair, Senator, with your permission, the FBI's unified crime reporting data talks about bladed weapons, but does not break out the types of weapons that they're talking about. What we do know anecdotally from law enforcement is that kitchen knives are most likely to be used in a crime because they're available to everyone, they're in everybody's kitchen, and most importantly, they're present when there is a domestic violence situation. And so in most cases, what we know from law enforcement and prosecutors over the years, and this is anecdotal evidence because there is no hard data, that it's generally kitchen knives. And these types of knives are almost always exclusively used by folks working in factories, folks working in kitchens, folks who are just trying to do their gardening stuff and do these jobs, and they're vulnerable to arrest for absolutely no reason, for possessing a tool that in many cases their boss requires them to have on them when they're at work. And when they get on the bus to go home, they're suddenly in violation of the law. It's just not right and it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go to testimony from Jeff Pack.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Pack. I represent me, and I'm speaking once again, as one of the previous testifiers said, it kind of feels like Groundhog Day again. I spoke in support of this bill last year as well. Some of you may remember I actually did sort of a little demonstration here exactly what the real difference in deployment of a spring assisted knife or spring blade knife versus a regular one. Well, since then, this bill has actually become rather near and dear to my heart. And I'm glad that Senator Fortunato mentioned the handicap side. I was actually a victim in the past year of a vicious dog attack with a pit bull that caused pretty major nerve damage in both of my hands, such to the point that I can't even reliably, much less hardly even at all, deploy a knife either left-handed or right-handed. So I've essentially sort of had to become a undercover criminal here, I guess, because I carry a knife for merry reasons, defense, but also it's just handy to have. I get this whole ton of Amazon boxes here that my wife is single-handedly trying to keep Amazon in business. So I've got this whole pile of boxes that I often have to cut up. So it's pretty handy to have a knife to just eviscerate a box here every once in a while. There's also some personal satisfaction to that. But anyways, what I'm trying to get across is the not having these things be legal is really rather silly. But as I said, it's more near and dear to my heart now because I have to carry one. I can't deploy a regular knife with my hand anymore. So the handicap aspect is pretty important. So I'll just leave you folks with that. Toss us all a bone here. Don't make Jeff have to remain a criminal here, and actually pass this thing out and let's get it passed on both the Senate and the House side. So don't make Jeff a criminal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll make sure your wife is happy as well. And with that, we're going to close public hearing on Senate Bill 5534. We had 82 people signed in pro, not testifying, and one person signed in con, not testifying.